let's say we're in our off season right now. Maybe not your team. We don't know, I guess. But in the off season,
we don't know what we're doing right now.
Neither do we really. But seeing that we're in the off season, we got again, it's the same question. It's some people have an understanding of what to do. Some parents are saying, they don't know what to do. But so the player, I always try to get the players to take some onus on themselves. So if we're looking at, so we're in May right now, mid-May we'll call it, and we'll go to September when the season starts. If you had a son or if you were their coach, how would you structure their off-season plan? So what I mean by that is, would you start with a cardio? Would you start with building a base, getting strong, like that process more than anything?
Yeah. So I would definitely establish my off season. So time for me to rest, like where I'm not in the gym, I'm not playing hockey. I'm not saying you can't go do yoga or go do any kind of general fitness, go for a run, go do Pilates, go play a sport, go play soccer, go like that. That's your time to cross train. And I think that's important, is establish what that is. So for us, usually when our season ends, depending on how far you go, like a playoff year is quite a bit different than a year that you're done playing hockey in April. But, we're usually around 2 to 3 weeks where it's like, stay away, do nothing, enjoy your family, go for walks, go for hikes, go do yoga, whatever floats your boat. So I think that's important at all ages, is to figure out when that is. It's an important time to mentally and physically, recuperate. Then from there, I'd go into what we call as our general preparation phase. And I think a lot of people skip this and they get right to the sexy stuff. And your general preparation is very non-sexy. And it's not the type of training you always want to do, but it's kind of your physical reset. So in that general preparation phase, like when we play hockey, we get pulled into a certain posture. And a lot of muscles get inhibited, so they get turned off and they don't get worked the way they should. So that's your time to start re-strengthening that and start rebalancing your body. I think I heard this from Brett Bartholomew is the guy's name. He's a strength coach. I actually worked with Cass one summer when he was down in the
speaks very high level.
Yeah, and so he used an analogy of like a fishing rod. So if you have a fishing rod and you have all these lines kind of coming off every direction, the fishing rod, so hockey will start pulling us in a certain direction. So we start getting the rounded shoulders, we start getting the collapsed shoulders, the collapsed chest, our hips kind of start going in, our hips get depressed or compressed. So what we want to do in that time is try and get that fishing rod. So all those lines are pulling us forward. We want to try and get that fishing rod rebalanced. So it's working more on the posterior chain, working more on the shoulders, reestablishing some strength through the groin, trying to free up the joint, the capsule, the hip capsule. So that would kind of be my focus early on. And then with that, I'd complement that with isometric work, some longer isometrics. Again, boring stuff, not very fun, painful in its own way. But when you do isometrics, then you're able to get into the tendon and start training the tendon a little bit more, as opposed to just the muscle and just the nervous system. And then with that, when you're holding those positions for a longer time, you get this incredible amount of internal pressure. And if you add external weights, and that pressure goes up, and then your heart rate goes up. So now you're getting a little bit of an aerobic effect. So in my GPP phase, I want to rebalance the body. I want to work through the tendon a little bit more. I want to work a little bit more aerobically as opposed to anaerobically that we usually do throughout the course of the season. And then I want to reestablish a little bit of work capacity. So for some young athletes, I would build in a little bit of like hypertrophy, so some muscle building into that too. So those would be my 4 big rocks that I would do early on. Yeah. And then as you get into the next phase. Yeah.
So my question, not my question, just so maybe less experienced people understand it. An isometric simply means that you're holding a pose or holding a squat or whatever. And hypertrophy means that you're putting on size.
Exactly.
So those two things. In case anybody is wondering what those two words mean, I just need to look smart a little bit here. I just try to keep up to the Joneses here, dude. Okay, so next phase. Sorry, go.
Yeah, so then my next phase would be more like my specific development, so kind of like a strength phase. So I'm starting to build out the qualities that are important to hockey. We're starting to work a little bit more strength. We're starting to work a little bit more on power. And I design my days so they're going after certain things. So tempoing is important in that phase. So doing some of the shorter, heavier isometrics, doing some of the shorter eccentrics. So working now a little bit more on motor control, having a velocity-based day where I'm trying to move a little bit quicker. So I have different themes to my days, but specific but non-specific. And what I mean by that is I'm squatting, so I'm building strength for hockey, but it's not necessarily a hockey movement. So that's where I'm trap bar deadlifting, I'm squatting, doing more things like that. And then once I get into my next phase, now I'm starting to get a little bit more specific in my sport. So it's going to transfer to my sport a little bit better. So my loads start getting a little bit lighter. My velocities, my speeds start getting a little bit faster. I start working in more angles that look like hockey. So I'm doing more lateral stuff. I'm doing more crossovers in that position. I might be doing more sprints, whether that's on ice or off ice. I'm trying to match things specific to the sport. So I'm trying to get more external rotation and extension of my leg. And then with that, I'm trying to match ground contact times of the sport. So for example, running. So running, if you do sprinting, longer sprints, the ground contact time is really quick. You don't see that in hockey. We have a longer ground contact time. So it's more push and glide, more push and glide. So I'm doing more exercises that reflect that. So if I want to work more on speed development, I might be doing some hill work. So the nice thing about hill work is it forces a little bit more of a lean angle, similar to what you see in hockey. And then it forces more ankle dorsiflexion. So it forces your ankle to do this, which is important for hockey to get more skate blade. And then the ground contact times are a little bit longer, right? Because of the resistance of the hill. So now that matches the sport a little bit more, and I can work in different angles. I don't always have to work straight up the hill. I can go backwards up the hill. I can go lateral up the hill. I can cross over up the hill. So that's kind of what I mean by more sport specific. And then the last phase, I'm trying to even decrease my loads even more. I'm trying to increase those velocities, those speeds even more. And then I'm also adding days where I'm having a little bit more capacity. So similar to like what we did in the Gpp phase, so more of that like the hypertrophy, those higher rep exercises. Now I'm starting to put those back in low doses, not high doses, because now I'm skating a ton. And at that time of year, it's all about skating. It's all about hockey. That's the most important thing. Your fitness program should be complementing it, not interfering with it that time of year. And then with all that, I'm still thinking about hockey. So hockey is still my primary focus. That's the reason why I'm training. So now how do I complement my on-ice stuff with now what I'm doing in the gym? And kind of a simple way of putting it is in season, it's more tactical, where in the off season, you can be a little bit more technical. So working with someone like yourself, you know, developing some of those soft skills that you might lose and develop bad habits during the season, you want to reestablish those. So I think it's important to know what your on ice goal is and then go after it, because you can be more specific with it in the off season. In season is all about team stuff. It's all about systems, where the off season could be more about you. So that piece is important not to forget, because at the end of the day, we want everything we do in the gym to transfer onto the ice. So if we're hyper focusing on one or the other, we're not going to get that transfer of the two modalities.